That's my symbol for 10 plus 1. I don't know if that works, but it's the 11th unit in our course on daily Bible reading. I'm Matt Mustrick, and today our topic is all about Bibles. And believe it or not, the type of Bible you use and the format you choose has a lot to do with whether or not you'll sustain this habit of daily Bible reading. So you're going to hear a lot of my opinions on what to get and what not to get in a Bible. I realize that those are a little harder to come by if you have to wait a little longer to ship, but you may just want to start with exploring the Bibles you have in your home and see what you like and what you don't like. So I'm going to start with what I don't like. In Bibles. I really hate Bibles that the pages are too thin or the font size is too small, and my latest pet peeve are these sans serif fonts. Those are ones like Arial instead of Times New Roman. On the printed page, fonts that have serif, so those little teeny things at the edge of letters, actually help the eye read, and I've heard online it's just the opposite. So that's my latest pet peeve, but these things just get in the way. If the pages are too thin and you can't see, and the print's too small or the font's weird, like you're just starting out with something that's not pleasing to your eyes. I also am not a big fan of most Bibles that are out there that have the 2-column format because it feels to me like a textbook, or it feels like, I hate to say this, but it feels like a Bible. And so then it sets the Bible apart from all other books, which is good in a way, but in another way it can be off-putting. And so I'll begin to talk about ones I like in just a minute. The other thing I don't like personally for Bibles are study Bibles. Now, some people really find study Bibles helpful because when they find a perplexing part of Scripture, they can just look down and check the notes, and there's maybe some helpful explanations. I guess if I were to compromise, the study Bibles that have an introduction to the book at the beginning, I like better than the ones that are filled with pictures and notes and all sorts of distracting things. It could also be because I'm a pastor and studying the Bible is part of what I do professionally. And so it feels more like it's my vocation, it's my work that day. So I have a different Bible that I use for devotions. So here's what I do like, just so you know. I like a single column Bible with wide margins that looks more like a book, quite honestly. It's hard to get beyond some of the thin pages, but I don't like the super ones that you can see the other side of the page. I use a ballpoint pen to write in mine. I love to write in the margins, so they need to be at least an inch margin or so that I can write in. I like the single column. It feels like I'm reading a book instead of a textbook, and that's just one I've really gravitated toward. You'd think these things wouldn't make a difference, but give it a try. Give a couple different Bibles a try and see what you think about that. And then the other reason I like using my ballpoint pen and my margins and the single column Bible is it feels then more like a conversation with God. That when I write in the margins, it's usually parts of verses or a paraphrase of a verse or a thought that occurs to me. And I've talked a lot about how the scriptures are the ways that God speaks. The scriptures are the way that God speaks to us. And I found that the things I'm hearing, those are the things I'll write down. Now, it's not an audible hearing. I don't hear a whisper, but rather it's the words themselves that speak to me. And I often will sense that this is God's personal word for me. So I like to write those things down if I sense that God is speaking. Finally, just a word about translations. I've written on this in other places. I'll see if I can dig up some of my old stuff. There are kind of two kinds of translations. One is a word-for-word translation, like the New King James, NRSV, ESV, and then there are what's called a dynamic paraphrase. So the difference is some are translations word for word from the original languages, and some are translations thought by thought or paraphrase by paraphrase from the original languages. Some people find those dynamic equivalents or paraphrase by paraphrase translations to be much more readable, like Eugene Peterson's The Message, the Good News translation, I think the New Living translation, and the NIV is kind of right in the middle, quite honestly. It's kind of hard to categorize. My first thought on a translation is find one you can understand. And then start there. And then once you find a few you can understand, I would lean more toward the word-by-word translation. In fact, I love the New King James Version. I don't read that regularly, But what I like about it is it'll add like a the in italics where there's no the in the Greek, but you need it in English to make sense. So I really like that. I would say like the ones I'm reading regularly are the ESV, English Standard Version, and the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version. But go with one that you can understand and that will read, because I don't want the translation itself to be a barrier for you. I think that's it for today. Today, your assignment is to read the Bible for 11 minutes. We're going to get up to 15 in case you're curious. And here's your journaling prompt for the day. What Bible formats do you like, and what Bible formats do you dislike, and why? So you heard my personal preferences and the why behind them, but I'm curious if you've experienced that, if the way a Bible is laid out or a particular translation can become a barrier to this habit. And I don't want it to be. And so if we can remove some of those barriers, I think that it's easier to form this new habit. Peace be with you.